You were thinking about someone you had not spoken to in years, and then your phone buzzed. Their name. You needed an answer to something you had been carrying quietly for weeks. And then you opened a book to a random page, and the first sentence you read was exactly what you needed to hear. You were at your lowest point, the kind of low that does not announce itself dramatically, but sits on your chest at 3 a.m. and makes everything feel permanent. And then something happened, something small, something that should not have mattered, but it landed in exactly the right way at exactly the right moment, and something inside you shifted. You called it a coincidence. You moved on. But a part of you, a quiet, honest, knowing part of you, did not believe that for a single second. Carl Jung called that part of you correct. He spent years studying these moments, not as a mystic, not as someone chasing the supernatural, as a scientist, as a man who believed that if something kept happening, if millions of people across every culture and every era kept reporting the same kind of impossible timing, the same sense that the universe had arranged something specifically for them, then it deserved to be taken seriously. And what he discovered changed everything he thought he knew about the relationship between the inner world of the soul and the outer world of reality. He called it synchronicity. And once you understand what it actually is, not the watered-down version, not the Instagram quote version, you will never be able to dismiss these moments again. Here is what most people get wrong about synchronicity. They think it is about magic. They think Jung was saying that the universe is sending you signs, that some external force is arranging events for your benefit, that if you just pay attention to the right symbols, you can decode the secret language of fate. That is not what he said. What he said was far more interesting and far more personal. Jung discovered that the human psyche, your soul, your unconscious, the deep interior life that runs beneath everything you consciously think and feel and decide, is not as separate from the outside world as we believe. He said that the boundary between what happens inside you and what happens around you is far thinner than modern life has taught you to assume. And that sometimes, in moments of deep emotional significance, in the middle of important transitions, in the seasons of life when something essential is trying to shift, the inside and the outside align in ways that defy rational explanation. Not because something supernatural is happening, but because something deeply natural is. Think about when these moments tend to occur in your own life. Not randomly, never randomly. They happen when you are at a crossroads, when you are grieving something, when you are about to make a decision that will change the direction of your life, when you are finally ready to hear something you have been avoiding for a long time. They happen when your soul is already in motion. Jung noticed this pattern obsessively. The meaningful coincidence never arrives in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday when nothing significant is happening and you are simply going through the motions of your routine. It arrives in the charged moments, the alive moments, the moments when something inside you is paying attention in a way it does not usually pay attention. And Jung asked the question that nobody else was willing to ask. What if the outer event does not cause the inner recognition? What if the inner state, the readiness, the openness, the specific frequency of your soul at that specific moment is what makes certain outer events visible in the first place? He used the example of a fish. He said that just because you cannot see the fish does not mean the river is empty. You were always surrounded by meaningful moments, by connections, by patterns, by things that were trying to reach you, but you were not ready to see them. And then something shifted inside you. Some grief cracked you open. Some question became urgent enough that you could no longer ignore it. Some part of your soul finally got tired of waiting. And suddenly the river was full of fish. The same river, a different you. Jung documented one of the most famous examples of synchronicity in his own practice. He had a patient, highly intelligent, deeply rational, the kind of person who had built an entire identity around logic and analysis and the absolute refusal to believe in anything that could not be proven. She was telling him about a dream she had the night before. In the dream, someone had given her a golden scarab, an ancient Egyptian symbol of transformation and rebirth. As she was describing the dream, Jung heard something at the window behind him. He turned around. A scarab beetle, the closest thing found in that part of Europe to an Egyptian golden scarab, was tapping against the glass. He opened the window, caught the beetle, held it out to her. She stared at it, and something in her that all her rationality had been protecting cracked open completely. Because in that moment, her ego, the part of her that needed everything to make sense, that needed to stay in control, that needed the world to be only as large as her mind could comfortably contain, had no answer. And in the space where the answer should have been, something else entered. Openness, the willingness to consider that reality might be larger than she had allowed it to be. Jung said that was the moment her actual healing began. Not in any technique he used, in a beetle at a window. And that is the thing about synchronicity that nobody talks about. It does not arrive to entertain you. It arrives to break something open. Something that needed breaking. Something that your ego, that protective, rational, fiercely defended part of you that keeps the world manageable and safe and small enough to control, has been guarding for a very long time. And the crack it leaves behind is not damage. It is light coming in. Think about the most significant coincidence of your own life. Not the small ones. The one that stopped you. The one that made you go quiet in a way you could not explain to anyone around you, because the moment you tried to put it into words, it sounded like nothing. It sounded like a story. It sounded like exactly the kind of thing a rational person would hear and nod politely at and privately dismiss. But you were there, and you know what it felt like. It felt like the universe knew your name. It felt like something, some intelligence larger than anything you could see or touch or prove, had arranged that specific moment for you specifically. Not for anyone else, for you. In your particular pain, your particular search, your particular season of being utterly lost and quietly desperate for something to tell you that you were not completely alone in all of it. Jung would not tell you that feeling was irrational. He would tell you it was one of the most psychologically significant moments of your life. And he would ask you one question. What were you ready to hear in that moment that you had not been ready to hear before? Because that is the real secret of synchronicity. It is not about the event. It is never about the event. The phone call, the book falling open, the stranger who said exactly the right thing, the song that came on at the exact moment you needed those specific words. None of those things are the point. The point is you. The point is what was happening inside your soul at the moment those things arrived. The readiness, the hunger, the specific quality of attention that comes when a human being has finally gotten tired enough of their own defenses to be genuinely open to something real. Jung said that synchronicity is not the universe speaking to you. It is your own unconscious, your own soul, finally getting loud enough to make itself heard through the only language it has available. The language of the world around you. Here is where this becomes something you can actually use. Because this is not just philosophy. This is not just a beautiful idea to carry around and occasionally mention at dinner. This is something that changes the way you move through your own life. When you understand synchronicity the way Jung understood it, not as magic, not as coincidence, but as the soul communicating through meaningful pattern, you start paying attention differently. You stop dismissing the moments that feel charged. You stop explaining away the things that land too perfectly to be accidental. You stop shutting down the quiet inner voice that says, "This means something," and replacing it with the louder, safer, more socially acceptable voice that says, "That is just a coincidence. Move on." You start asking instead, what is my soul trying to show me right now? What am I ready to see that I was not ready to see before? What is trying to reach me through this moment? And here is something deeply practical that Jung observed. The people who pay attention to these moments, who take them seriously, who sit with them rather than immediately explaining them away, move through their lives differently. Not because the universe rewards them with more signs, but because the act of paying attention changes them. It makes them more present, more awake, more connected to the actual texture of their own life, rather than the narrated version of it they carry around in their heads. They start noticing things they had always been surrounded by but never actually seen. The pattern in their relationships that had been trying to teach them something for years. The direction their soul had been leaning toward, that their fear had been talking them out of. The thing they had known for a long time, quietly certainly, in that deep interior place that does not have a loud voice but is never actually wrong, that they had been pretending not to know. Synchronicity does not give you new information. It makes you honest about the information you already have. Jung believed that the soul is always trying to move toward wholeness. Always. Even when you are not cooperating. Even when you are doing everything in your power to stay comfortable and safe and exactly where you are. The soul does not stop moving. It just gets more creative. It starts using the world. It starts bending coincidence into meaning, arranging timing into revelation, turning ordinary moments into the kind of thing you remember for the rest of your life because something in them reached past your defenses and touched something true. That is not the universe manipulating your reality. That is your own deepest self. The part of you that knows what you need, even when you are too afraid to admit it, finding a way to be heard. And now here is the twist, the one Jung spent years circling before he finally said it plainly. The reason synchronicity feels like it comes from outside you is because the part of you it comes from is so deep, so far beneath the surface of your everyday conscious mind, that it feels like something other. Something larger, something not quite you, but it is you, the most you that exists. The part of you that was never confused about who you are or what you need, or which direction your life is supposed to move in. The part that does not get distracted by fear or ego, or the exhausting social performance of being a person in the world. The part that has been quietly, patiently, absolutely certain this entire time. And when that part of you needs to get a message through, when the stakes are high enough and the moment is right, and you are finally open enough to receive it, it reaches out through the world around you. Through a song, through a stranger, through a book falling open to exactly the right page, through a beetle at a window. Not because the world is magical, because you are. So the next time something happens that feels too perfectly timed to be random, that lands in that specific tender place inside you that you do not show anyone, do not reach for the rational explanation. Not immediately. Sit with it first. Ask what your soul is trying to tell you. Ask what you are finally ready to hear. Ask what part of your life this moment is pointing toward. Not with the noise of your thinking mind, but with the quiet certainty of something deeper. Because Jung spent his entire career studying the border between the inner world and the outer world. And what he found there, in the charged space between what happens inside you and what happens around you, was not randomness. It was not chaos. It was not a universe indifferent to your specific, particular, deeply human experience of being alive. It was a soul, your soul, trying its absolute hardest to bring you home to yourself. And it has been leaving you signs the entire time. You just have to be willing to stop calling them coincidences. The moment that stopped you, the one you still think about, the one you could never fully explain, was not nothing. It was never nothing. It was your life trying to show you something you were finally ready to see. And the fact that you remember it still means part of you already knows that.